modern frontiers of Iraq. It can broadly be said that while Mesopotamia is the ancient Greek and European name, the name Iraq, in its various forms, has been more local. Similarly, with the usual caveats about the dangers of generalization, Persia is the ancient Greek and hence European name for the land more locally known as Iran. In the latter case, as with Iraq and Mesopotamia, we use the terms, for the most part, interchangeably. The last word on the question of whether Iraq really is a distinct place, historically, can be given to the following fact. If one divides the 5,000 years of human civilization into 10 periods of 5 centuries each, during the first 9 of these, the world's leading city was in one of the 3 regions of current-day Iraq, while none was in a neighboring land, much less, with a relatively brief, by Iraq's standards, exception of ancient Rome, anywhere else. First came the great cities of the Sumerian civilization of southern Iraq, including Uruk and Ur. Then Babylon rose, north of Sumer. Nineveh, at Mosul, which long gave its name to the northernmost of Iraq's 3 traditional regions, rose in the 7th century BC, to be followed by Babylon again through the time of Alexander. Babylon was followed by Seleucia on Tigris, city of Alexander's Hellenistic successors in the center of the country. After the interlude of Rome in the centuries around the time of Christ, Seleucia rose again as Ctesiphon, principal city of the Sasanian Persian Empire in the first half-millennium after Christ. The last of the major Mesopotamian cities was Baghdad during the Abbasid dynasty, with its heyday in the 9th and 10th centuries AD. Other cities in other lands rose and fell, Thebes and Alexandria in Egypt, for example, or Patna in India, and Tang dynasty Xi'an in China. But none of these defined historical epochs for a broader world like the urban centers of the land that invented civilization, and that continued, through all these periods, to be the essential crossroads. I first came to know Iraq during the 4 years I spent reporting and writing for newspapers and magazines during the 2004 to 2008 war there, that erupted after a year or so of lesser violence following the 2003 US-led invasion. I was a freelancer with no resources for security, but also none of the restrictions that came with working for corporate media in a war zone. I worked and survived by the generosity and courage of the Iraqi people, amongst whom I lived and moved. I placed myself at their mercy, as a guest in their houses and in their land. It paid off. I came to owe the place a great debt. Wanting to understand Iraq better and to share what I learned about its longer and more fundamental story, as I had previously shared some of its more recent stories during my years in journalism, I embarked on this book. Apart from the main theme of humanism versus the various outlooks of power, other principal threads emerge. One is that Iraq, the Mesopotamian floodplain with its southern wetlands and northern foothills, is very much a place, and one whose modern borders reflect this well. Another is Iraq's extraordinary centrality to broader cultural and political history over the millennia. A third is how this, thanks partly to Iraq's location and its mostly flat and open landscape, also means that the story, from the beginning, is so often driven by outsiders. Another is the extraordinary length of what might be called an East-West conflict in Iraq. The Roman-Persian Wars lasted from 54 BC until 628 AD. Footnote: these conflicts saw the Parthian and then the Sasanian empires of Persia fight republican and subsequently imperial Rome, based from 330 AD at Constantinople. End of footnote. 9 centuries later, a version of the conflict resumed, when the Ottoman Turks made Constantinople again the capital of a strong empire, taking on much of the organization of the Second Rome, and when Iran's Safavid Empire saw Persia at last whole and imperial once more for the first time since the Muslim invasions of the 7th century AD.